Sometimes people think, oh, well, if I just heal this one money block, if I just get over this one thing, if I just clear up this one thing, I won't have to deal with it again. And that's not how it works, because from a holistic perspective, everything is contributing to the whole. So you'll never get rid of your fear because your fear is a part of you. You'll never get rid of your doubts because doubts are a part of you. You will have tools to move through them more quickly, to disarm them, to de-story them, which is another way of saying destroy them, but you can de-story them, like you can give them another job, so that you realize that everything is serving the whole. So this is not
Mhm.
about, I'm going to get rid of a money block. I'm going to overcome this. That's a dominant power over paradigm that is not working now.
You're listening to Sensitive, Spiritual, and Successful, the podcast where we uncover ways to connect you back to your soul self and get you unstuck so that you can live out your full potential. I'm Jasmine Lynn, a former psychotherapist turned human design soul guide and EFT tapping success coach, and I'm here to show you how to love yourself through all your levels of growth. I know you're here because you have an impact you want to make in this world and you have a light to share, and I'm here to guide you through that journey because you deserve soul-aligned success. In my interview with Dr. Deborah Fryer, we are talking about money and money blocks, and you'll hear me say that she is one of our guest expert speakers at the Tap into Abundance Summit coming up October 3rd. So if you want to register for that, learn more about how to clear money blocks with EFT tapping, go ahead and either go to the show notes to grab the link or www.tapintoabundancesummit.com to register. And I also wanted to mention before we get into all the good stuff, when you register for your free ticket, you get an opportunity to upgrade into a premium summit experience package. I know that's a mouthful. This package or bundle is where all the speakers contribute their best programs, masterclasses, workshops, and it helps you integrate the knowledge a bit better, and it helps you dive deeper into the work in terms of using EFT tapping to clear your limitations. So I wanted to say Dr. Deborah Fryer actually has a wonderful program. It's called Your Money Story Bonuses. That's worth over $400, and you get it for a special deal when you register. It's a limited time offer. It's $67. As soon as you register, you'll see that, and it goes up to $97 later. Now, I'm talking about this and I'm telling you about this because I got to interview Dr. Deborah Fryer again for the summit, and I was just mind blown. She did tapping with me. She's so skilled at getting right to the root. I know you're not going to want to sleep on this program. And like I said, you get her program and everybody else's. So yeah, I just have to say that. And I'm always amazed at what the speakers contribute to these bundles. So anyway, let's just jump right in and you can decide for yourself if it's right for you. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Deborah Fryer to you. We're going to get to know her a little bit. She is one of our guests at the summit, and we'll just jump right in. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for inviting me. Love these conversations.
Can you give us a little introduction of yourself, a little bit about the work that you do? And obviously, this podcast, we dive into human design. So if you know your human design and don't mind sharing, do you want to share that with us too?
Sure. My human design is that I'm a projector, which means that I have the high level view. It means that I'm up here with the bird's eye view. I see the entire thing. And I didn't know this for a really long time about myself. And it's interesting, once you know what your design is, you can see if you're living your design or not. So my backstory is that very, very, very early on, I knew that everything is interconnected with everything. When I was 10 and my grandmother died, my friends said, "What happened to your grandmother?" And I said, "She turned to rain." I knew this at a young age, and I suppressed it because people thought that was weird. People would be like, "No, no, no, that's not true. Like, she's dead." And like, there was this very strong delineation between life and death. And I have never embraced the world as that there is death and there is life. Everything is contributing to the whole of the cycle. So according to my design, having this high level view. My first career, I got a PhD in comparative literature. And comparative literature means that you look at a story as it is told through many different cultures. So you're looking at it from multiple viewpoints. I didn't know that was in my design. I just was interested in how do they tell the story in India, and how do they tell it in ancient Greece, and how do they tell it in the Bible, and how do they tell it, in indigenous tribes. I had no idea that that high level view of how everything is one thing was in my design. So then my second career was as a documentary filmmaker. And as a documentary filmmaker, you have an unbiased, impartial opinion. You're there to learn. And so you interview people across the entire spectrum of whatever the story is. And you want multiple viewpoints. And you want multiple viewpoints in the narrative. You also want multiple viewpoints in the visual structure of it. So there might be a one shot or a two shot or a close up, an extreme close up. There might be what's called a tracking shot where you're like traveling along the water or you're driving along the road. You've got a drone shot. So you see the high level view. And I'm putting together as an editor and a writer and a producer and a director, I'm putting together all of these different shots. So I'm seeing the entire story from multiple perspectives at the same time. And it never occurred to me that, oh my gosh, that is in your design to do that. You're supposed to see multiple perspectives at the same time. And I always thought it was weird. I always thought like I had this freakish ability to feel and hear and see energy. And because energy is energy and it transforms into the physical and the non-physical, into the audible and the non-audible. Most people have been conditioned to only experience what they can see as reality or what they can touch as reality. So the non-physical, the non-visible, the feeling which actually precedes the physical manifestation of matter, the feeling is also the reality. And it's in fact the bigger reality. It's 95% of the reality that we're mostly not aware of until we are. As a projector, I've always been aware of the non-physical reality as the overarching structure in what I call the reality. The reality is the non-physical and the physical. Most people think the physical is the reality. So they'll say, well, the reality is I just blah, 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 and then they'll argue for their limitations. Well, the reality is blah, blah, blah. And they'll just argue for the material things that have already been created, not taking into account what hasn't been created yet, but it's coming. It's on its way. So that was my second projector career, but I didn't know it was a projector career. And then my next career move was I actually took the storytelling and the filmmaking into my coaching business. And because I see things from many, many perspectives, it is very easy for me to see a money block. It's very easy for me to see an energetic block. I can just see it. I can see it like I can see that plant behind me, or like I can see my dog behind me. Like it's this structure. It has vibration and feeling and shape and texture. And I can see it and I can see where it is in your body. And I can see where the thoughts are having to go around it. And I can see how you're having to contort yourself to get around this thing that you perceive is in the way. And it's super easy for me, and it's not so easy for other people because they think that the block is the problem. And the block is actually the doorway. But we'll get into that, I'm sure. So, in my next career as a money coach, as an accidental money coach, I didn't want to be a money coach. I didn't see myself as a money coach. I didn't identify as that. But the true wealth of the totality of the cosmos and the physical materialization of the cosmos is beautiful and magical and powerful. And so that became the next chunk of the work that I'm doing in the world, is to help people embrace their whole self, which means you're going to have to go beyond the mind. You're going to have to go beyond the body and inhabit this space around you, inhabit the energetic field. And that energetic field is inside of you. It's inside every organ. It's inside every cell. That spaciousness, that emptiness, that no thingness. So that's what the anatomy of money work is around. And I'm in the middle of bringing in the next projector thing, which is painting and intentional creativity. And with intentional creativity, we're using as our starting point the non-conscious. We're using as our starting point the emptiness, right? Literally, you start with an empty canvas and then you make a mark. And then you look at your mark and then you have a reaction or a response to your mark. So it's a very quick way for you to see the subconscious thoughts and beliefs and reactions that are living rent free in your temple. And then to choose to change them as we're moving our hands, we're moving the brush, we're moving the energy, we're actually rewriting new neural pathways in the act of painting, which is moving and it's visual. And it's, there's a sensory quality to the water and the paint and the feel of the brush, etc. So, I'm just expanding what I've already known to include the creative act itself.
I love that. It sounds like
And
you
all of these are projector things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's so funny as a projector or when you learn your human design, I find that people are always like, "Wow, the thing that I thought was a flaw or was weird about me is actually my greatest gift." And that's like you've really just stepped into that and you're really owning it, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing once you see your design. And once you see your design, when I look at my design, and I can see that I have a channel. I have the full channel, not just the gates, but I have the full channel that goes between crown and throat and G center. Um, and I also have a full channel of sensitivity. And I used to think that my sensitivity was a problem because it was a problem for other people. It was a problem for other people that I am so sensitive. And they would say, "Oh, you're too sensitive," or "Oh, you're taking it personally." And, it's a form of gaslighting to invalidate one's sensitivity. And I know a lot of sensitive people have experienced this. And then they do what I did, which is, we shut it down because, oh, I just better not feel my feels. Oh, I better not be so sensitive because if I'm not so sensitive, you won't be uncomfortable with me. And I want you to like me. So I learned to be my not self. I learned to get into my conditioned way of being, and I've abdicated the core of me. And, through painting, I have discovered the inner voice, the inner me, the true self that wants to express herself, that has something to say. And I didn't realize in a conscious way how strong all these subconscious messages are. And until they started coming out my paintbrush, and they're coming out again and again and again and again. It's always the same message about interconnectedness, about how loved you are, about how creative you are, about how supported you are, about how you're earth and sky, you're flesh and bone, and you're also stardust. It's in everything that comes out of me is the both and. And so I'm really thrilled to be bringing it forward. Is there a little trepidation because it's yet another business that I'm starting? Yes, there is. And I also know my soul knows this absolutely wants to be delivered. It wants to be received. It wants to be expressed. And there are people all over the world, especially entrepreneurs, who are really sick of, I got to hustle. I got to do it the masculine way. I got to like fit into this box. No, I want to find an authentic way of me expressing that is fully aligned with me and my design.
Mm. Yes, yes, and I think giving yourself permission to be multi-passionate or, multidimensional, like you're a money coach, and we'll get into that actually. My next question is how you stumbled upon becoming a money coach. I wanna hear that story, but also allowing yourself to just own that part of you who's creative. I think so many times we stop ourselves and we think, "Oh,
Mhm.
I gotta stick to this one thing," or "I gotta, I put my time and energy into this. I shouldn't I shouldn't be doing this. I should be sticking with this because this is my identity. I've based my identity off of this, but it's not true. And you're a living example of, no, I'm just going to listen to my soul and I'm going to flow along. And what's meant to be is going to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this whole identity thing, I mean, I'm stepping into the identity of I'm an artist. And for the longest
Mm.
time, I knew I was super creative, but I didn't call myself an artist. And, look at all these canvases. They're stacked up in my office and,
Yeah.
they're all over. Like this whole office space is art that I've created. I'll show you a close up of some of the paintings if you want, and then
Yeah.
you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see how there's like this birth process in it. So this is one of the this is one of the first paintings that I did, and it's quite big. But you can see that there's definitely there's a lotus in her hand. There's the sacred cow. There's all this illumination in her face, And there's the Kundalini energy that's running through the whole painting. And here in her third chakra, she's got the universe. She's birthing herself from the universe. She's in a spiral birthing herself. There's the goldfinch of consciousness in her hand. There's all this Lakshmi gold, running out the bottom as she's birthing herself. And the entire structure of this is like a pregnant belly, right? Can you see that? It's like she's birthing herself. And so this conversation about how am I birthing of
Mm.
myself? What do I want to contribute next? What do I want to use my life force to create next? What lights me up? What deadens
Mhm.
me? What am I moving away from, and what am I moving towards? And we're always doing this at every moment. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm in transition, as if that's a momentary thing. And being in
Right.
transition is an always thing. It is the state of being soul in a body. It's the state of being energy. Part of me is solid. It appears solid, right? Like this body appears solid, my bones appear solid, but they're actually reproducing themselves all the time. My skin is reproducing itself every 6 to 7 weeks. The tissue in my mouth and in my stomach and all through my digestive system is reproducing itself every couple of days. I'm gas, mostly oxygen and
Yes.
CO2 and gas in the gut. I'm existing in the gaseous state. I'm existing in the liquid state where there's saliva and there's tears and there's blood and there's lymph. I'm existing in the crystal, the liquid crystal state, and in my pineal gland and the matrix of our bones and the matrices of the chemical atomic structure. It's all lattices and crystalline structure. And there's actually nothing solid and permanent about me.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We'll have to like get a picture of it so people can see it. Yeah, I love hearing you speak about that interconnectedness. Now, I'm going to jump into your journey in specializing in using EFT for money blocks. I want to know how you got into that because you said you stumbled upon it, it just happened. So, can you give us that little backstory?
Yeah. So it was probably in 2000, maybe 1999, 1998, 1997. It was definitely many, many years ago. And I had just been broken up with by someone that I was in love with and that I wanted to marry. And you can hear in the syntax that I'm using that it was not my choice. So I was the recipient of the action, sometimes what we call the victim stance. And I was just heartbroken. And it was really hard for me to go out and be about because our paths would cross. And I had such love and such longing to be with this person. And it was really hard for me to get past this person. And so I was seeing a therapist. And I kept talking about how unhappy I was and kept talking about what was wrong and kept talking about why can't we get back together? And I just kept talking, talking, talking. And that reiterated and reaffirmed the problem. And it just made me more unhappy. And it made me feel more abandoned and it made me feel more sad. And so at one point, my therapist said, I want you to call my friend. She does this new modality. It's called EFT tapping. Just have a conversation with her. She might be able to help you. So I called this person up and she described that I do this thing. It's called emotional freedom technique tapping. This is back in the 90s. People weren't talking about this kind of thing the way they are today. And so she just guided me through the process. She helped me identify what the problem is, not too hard to identify. Like my heart is broken. I really miss this guy. I love this guy. I want to marry this guy, and he's not interested in me. Boo-hoo. And um, and so then she guided me through the tapping process, and I did the tapping process. And at the end of it, all there was love. And I was looking for the pain. I was looking for the rejection. I was looking for the abandonment. I was looking for the judgment. I was looking for there's something wrong with me. None of that was there. All there was love and appreciation for this person. And so that was my first experience. And I was like, what just happened? Like I was so in love and so heartbroken. Now I just feel love. I feel grateful, but I'm not hurting. Huh, interesting. So fast forward, it's now maybe a year later, and I had a dog who died in my arms, and she was 14. And it is another form of heartbreak when you usher a fur child across the rainbow bridge. And So I called this person again and I said, I'm really heartbroken and my dog just died and I'm crying and boo-hoo-hoo and I'm so sad. I'm inconsolable. And grief is very archaeological in that it's kind of a taproot. So, you lose a relationship, but then you lose an animal, and then, like all the way down. And so all the grief you've ever felt gets activated and it kind of builds on itself. So it just felt like this, not only was I mourning the loss of my beloved dog, but I was also mourning the loss of this relationship, and this person had known my dog. And it just like I was just stacking grief upon grief. So I was in a lot of grief. So I called her up and said, can you help me? Same thing. We visualized my dog, we visualized me in my pain, and I felt it immediately because your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. I can think about my dog right now who died, and I can start crying right now, even though I have a new puppy that I love, because we can conjure up emotion like that, and we do. So I got in this state of being very emotional. We tapped, and then again, I just felt love, I felt appreciation, I felt gratitude. So again, I was like, wow, that is weird. What's going on? So then fast forward another couple of years, and I was running marathons at the time. And I think I was training for my 10th marathon, and I started having knee pain. And so I thought, I wonder if this will work for knee pain. So I stopped in the middle of the run, going up a hill. My knee's really hurting, and I'm tapping, even though I'm feeling all this knee pain. I totally and unconditionally love myself, even though my knees are screaming. I love myself. And I just tapped and the knee pain went away. And then I was like, wow, this stuff is like freakishly powerful. I don't know how it works. It's really weird. I can't talk about it. Remember, this is in the 90s,
Right.
and like people aren't talking about this woo-woo stuff. And there's me who's conditioned to already shut down and go dark and not be too much and not be too loud and not have this like superpower of seeing energy because it's weird and it's going to freak people out. And so I'm just like, I'm just going to get really small. I'll be quiet about it, but it's actually doing something. So then fast forward to about 2010. So in 2010, I was working as a documentary filmmaker. I had a very successful career as a documentary filmmaker, but it felt conditionally successful. So when I was on a project, there was money, I was traveling, I was being paid, I was contributing, I was making my art, and I was great. And then the project would end, and I would fall through the cracks, and I would feel like the biggest loser. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. I was, always in overdraft, and I just felt like, what is wrong with me? Like I'm not a real doctor. I can't support myself. I should have been a real doctor. I should have gone to medical school. I totally effed up. So along the way, I decided I'm going to go to medical school. And I did a post-baccalaureate pre-medical degree, and I worked in an anatomy lab. And in the process of working in an anatomy lab, I got my hands on, I held, I had the sacred privilege of holding organs in my hand, of being literally inside people's bodies. And that blew my mind literally. And that really opened my perspective in such a massive, vast way, because inside every organ is completely hollow, is completely empty. And that's where the cosmos moves through us and animates us. And it changed everything, totally changed everything. So there was a day where I was sitting in meditation. I was actually leading sadhana, which is a very early morning meditation between 4 and 6 in the morning. And I didn't want to lead it. I'd go to the yoga studio, I'd do it for free. It was cold out, it was dark out. Nobody would show up at 4 in the morning. It was just me sitting there chanting. And I resented it. And so I'm sitting there chanting, and the yoga studio happened to be in a strip mall where there's an axe throwing bar right next to the yoga studio. And there are all these pickup trucks, in the parking lot. And I'm like afraid because it's me, wearing my white and sitting in the yoga studio with the door open, and I'm chanting, but I'm afraid these drunk men who have been throwing axes and they're all like jacked up, they're going to come in, and I'm so afraid and I'm angry and I'd rather be asleep in my bed, and nobody's paying me for this, and I'm tired and like, ugh, I just don't want to do it. But I sit down on my sheepskin and I'm chanting and I'm chanting and I'm chanting and I'm chanting. And then it's like my crown opens and the entire universe drops in. And it was like, that scene in The Wizard of Oz where it goes from black and white to color? it's like that happened inside my body. And I could see my whole body was the torque field with the energy coming in and flowing out and energy coming in and flowing out. And then I could see every organ and I could see how my heart was doing this and how it was receiving energy and giving, receiving, giving, receiving and filtering new blood, old blood, oxygen, deoxygenated. I could see this happening. I could see my lungs being part of the exchange. I could see my kidneys being part of the exchange, moving water through me. I could see every organ in my body participating, and each organ was its own little torque field, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. And it was like I could see the entire chakra system, the energetic system that comes from India. I could see that. I could also see the nervous system and the endocrine system and the cardiovascular system all mapping on top of each other. It was like the Encyclopedia Britannica from a long time ago that had the transparency. There'd be a
Oh,
transparency of the veins and a
yeah.
transparency of the organs. And it was like I could see all these transparencies stacked on top of each other in my body. And I was like, oh my God, I'm totally tripping. But I wasn't. I was just meditating. I was just chanting. And and then I was like, I gotta write this down. And this voice said, don't move. And I was like, I gotta write it down. And this stern voice of, meditation teachers of the past were like, don't move, just sit. I'm like, no, I gotta write it down. So I got out of my meditative state. I was still in a meditative state. I was like a lucid dreaming where I was dreaming of myself awake. And I drew the whole thing in my journal. And that was the beginning of the anatomy of money system. And I could see, oh, when I think about, 10xing my income, I can see that my digestive system clamps down. When I think about using my voice, I can see how my throat clamps down. When I think about being, bigger and successful than some of my ancestors who hid for safety. And when I think about me being visible, I can see how like I get a big headache. Like I could totally see how energy was like doing this in my body. And I just began to document it on my own self. And my income went from, 15,000 a year as a yoga teacher to like 75, $80,000 a year just by me doing the inner work, just by me really getting radically honest about where am I blocking energy? Where am I resisting the energetic flow of the cosmos that is trying to
Mm.
flow through? And without marketing more, without having a website, without doing anything different, my income 5x'd. And then people would come up to me. I'm still teaching yoga, I'm still teaching meditation. People would come up to me after yoga class and after meditation class, and they would say, Deborah, what are you doing? And I'd be like, what do you mean? And they'd say, well, you're different. Your energy's different. You're like, there's a glow about you. There's a lightness and a joy about you. Like, you didn't used to be like this. I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I can't talk about it. It's too weird. And then, somebody followed me out and she said, I want you to be my mentor. She was actually a neighbor. She said, I've lived across the street from you for 10 years. I've seen this incredible transformation. What's going on? And I'm like, oh, I don't have any private students. Next week, she follows me in my car and she's like, will you please mentor me? And I'm like, no, I don't do that. Just come and meditate with me in this public yoga center. Third week, she follows me out to the car and I get into my car and she's standing kind of like this with one hand on the roof of the car and one hand on the door. So I can't close the door. And she's like, will you please mentor me? And I'm like, I don't have any private clients. And she says, now you do. And that's how it started was, like, and this is very projectory, where I was just being me. I was just doing me in a very quiet, internal, visionary way. And people started coming to me. So
Mhm.
that's how it started. That's how EFT started. And then I would use EFT for money blocks and for relationship blocks and for weight loss and for insomnia and for physical pain because EFT will reduce whatever the anxious, stressful, painful symptom is, whether it's physical or emotional or financial or spiritual. It connects you to all it is.
Wow. Well, there's so many things I could touch on here, but the fact that, yeah, that person came to you and said, I see your transformation, because that's what we tell projectors is, focus on yourself, focus on giving yourself the love and recognition first, right? If you're not receiving it, you focused on yourself. And that's how projectors are so magnetic. It's like, well, yeah, what are you doing? I need your wisdom. Whereas sometimes if you don't get that recognition, your wisdom, because there's so much in there, is not like it's not fully valued. And you're like, does anyone see me? Does anyone, is anyone listening to what this great stuff I have to say? But this person's like, oh no, that you have a lot of great things to say and I want to hear it. And so did that just feel really nice as a, you didn't know you're a projector back then, but did that just feel really congruent with like your soul?
It does now. I love being invited
Yeah.
now, and it feels
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
again for inviting me to be in this conversation. I love being invited and I love being acknowledged. I love being recognized. Initially, my conditioning was that my comfort zone was in hiding, and my comfort zone was in not being recognized. My comfort zone was in, as a filmmaker, I hid in the edit room. When I got a PhD in comparative literature, I was basically writing behind my desk. So I wasn't very much in the public eye, and I was afraid to be seen even though I wanted to be seen, right? So the shadow side uh, of a projector is we become our not self, and I was conditioned for many, many years to be my not self, and so it felt scary and uncomfortable to be seen. In fact, I remember when I first started this coaching business, this anatomy of money business back in 2016, I had a nightmare where I was shot. And I was so afraid of being attacked. I was so afraid of being a target. And I know I was working through ancestral karma because my ancestors were killed for being visible. And this is true for many, many women of many different backgrounds, whether your background is Jewish or Native American or Black or Indian or whatever. Being a woman itself, the last 6,000 years of patriarchal dominant conditioning have led us to accept our insignificance, have led us to believe that we are worth less than men. And so we've internalized this feeling of worthlessness. And it takes a lot of courage and discipline and devotion and support and community with other women to realize that's conditioning and it's not the truth.
Yes. Yeah.
So it did feel scary in the beginning. And it still does sometimes feel scary. And I want to add as an asterisk, a footnote to this conversation around mindset. Sometimes people think, oh, well, if I just heal this one money block, if I just get over this one thing, if I just clear up this one thing, I won't have to deal with it again. And that's not how it works because from a holistic perspective, everything is contributing to the whole. So you'll never get rid of your fear because your fear is a part of you. You'll never get rid of your doubts because doubts are a part of you. You will have tools to move through them more quickly, to disarm them, to destory them, which is another way of saying destroy them, but you can destory them. Like you can give them another job so that you realize that everything is serving the whole. So this is not
Mm.
about, I'm going to get rid of a money block. I'm going to overcome this. That's a dominant power over paradigm that is not working now. And in fact, it has never worked, but the collective consciousness is now at a state of awareness that we're in a shared power dynamic.
I love the way you said that. I've noticed that. Well, I think that's why people get drawn to money mindset and like working on your blocks because you think if I get through this, then my income's going to blow up or something's going to, I'm going to manifest this amount of money. And what I've realized is like when you go through life, it's like an upward spiral. It's like the same, you'll get it again, that same block will come up, but exactly to your point, you have tools to work through it. And so it's not about, yeah, like this money block, I'm going to just be able to destroy it and it'll never come up again. Like you said, you de-story them. I love that term because it's true. It can serve a different purpose, in a different situation or experience, and you're able to look at it differently, a new perspective and how it can, move you along the way you need to. But yeah, that I'm so glad you said that because we get drawn into that.
Right. And you'll just discover a new one, right? So
Yeah.
here's a super common one. A brand new entrepreneur will go from, the story of I don't have any money. They'll stop telling that story of I don't have any money so that they can allow themselves to have money. And so now they tell the story of, oh, I'm, in the flow and I'm making a certain amount of money. So they make a certain amount of money. They blast through their income ceiling. Let's say it's six figures. And all of a sudden they feel like, oh my God, I'm such a fraud. I'm such an imposter. I've been a starving artist all my life. And who am I now to be making six figures? All my friends are still like, flipping burgers or they're yoga teachers. That was my case, right? Like we're making 20 bucks an hour. And who am I to be like, oh my God, I just had a six-figure year. Like I have a huge identity crisis now that I'm that. And I had all this judgment about people like that who make money. Ooh, I think people with money are jerks and they're manipulative and they're misogynist and they trash the environment and they're greedy and they're arrogant. And oh God, am I one of those people? Ooh, I gotta deal with that, right? Okay, so like that's gonna come up. And then let's say now I get to multiple six figures, and I've done this for many years in a row. And then I'm like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I'm afraid I can't handle it. I don't have the capacity to handle it. So I see this all the time with people who are, they've been in their business for a while and they make a pile of money and they lose it. They make a pile and they lose it. They make a pile and they lose it. And they have trouble holding it. And this is a capacity. This is an energetic capacity issue that's related to your identity. You still don't see yourself as someone who gets to have that. You can see yourself as making it, but you don't see yourself as someone who gets to have it. So you have a whole bunch of clients who want refunds, or they welch on their contract. They sign a contract and then they don't have integrity, and they're like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Or they're like, I just don't have any money. I just can't do it. Or they decide that they don't like you, or they are not yet in a place of, oh gosh, I really need to see that this is something for me to rise and become this next version of me. But it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of shadow work to embrace the parts of ourselves that are jerks and that don't want to take responsibility for ourselves and that really do want to be rescued, right? Like we got to own those parts of ourselves. Like, oh, I just wish that this prince or princess would come along and rescue me so I wouldn't have to do this. It's too hard, right? But that's still part of the conditioning. And so it'll go away. Or maybe you'll have a car accident, or maybe there's a medical condition, or maybe, there are always things in life. There are always things in life that are the perfect opportunity for us to rise and discover we have greater capacity than we thought we did.
Mhm.
It's really not about the money at all.
What would you say in your own words that it's about?
Well, I think that money blocks are conditioned. I think there's conditioning that we have inherited and taken on as truth without questioning it. That comes from our family of origin. It comes from the culture that we grew up in. It comes from the collective unconscious, this belief that you have to work really, really hard, that money doesn't grow on trees. And money is very vexing because it, in the physical form, can be used to manipulate and to control, to convince people of their insufficiency, of their need to be protected. It can instill a lot of fear and has been used to instill a lot of fear. And I think that all of us have been conditioned to be afraid, to feel afraid when there's not money. And money does actually grow on trees. The clothes you wear, the food you eat, the furniture you sit on, the boats and the houses, and money is providing shelter and food and furniture and beauty. I mean, trees are providing shelter and food and furniture and beauty. And the stuff that grows on the tree and the tree itself is exchanged for money. So it's not that money doesn't grow on trees. It's a real misrepresentation of how abundant nature is, and the true abundance of nature. If you look at trees, they're in a complete cycle of blooming, and then they flower, and then they fruit, and then they drop the fruits that you know they don't need, and some of that rots. And this is true in our business, right? We might have created a whole bunch of offers and at some point we just drop them and let them rot, right? Because like nobody bought it, or we don't want to put our energy into creating that thing anymore. And then the leaves fall off the tree, and the leaves become the compost for the next generation of growth for the tree. and the tree is more vulnerable. It's completely bare when it's exposed, and more light gets in. And all of these metaphors are really true for our businesses, and they're true for us. Like your body is actually a kind of tree. Your lungs are a kind of tree, and your body is constantly exchanging with the environment in the way that the trees are. Trees are turning sunlight into sugar, and they're drawing the sugar down, and then they're drawing water up, and that's creating more life of the tree. And as the tree exhales its O2, which it doesn't need, we're inhaling the O2, and right, and we're eating plant material. So we're basically eating light. We're eating sweetness and light. How beautiful is that?
Mhm.
And that, becomes who we are. And then as we exhale the CO2, that becomes the nourishment for the tree. So we're in this beautiful, intimate, really infinite dance of reciprocity, with the trees supporting us and us supporting the trees.
Mhm. I love that. When we talk about abundance, and maybe I've, heard you speak about this before, probably a couple of years ago. That's what I always refer to when I think about abundance. It's like, look outside, like the trees take what they need, the plants take what they need, and look at the way they provide for, the bigger whole. So maybe that was you. I don't know.
Oh,
That's something that's always stuck with me. And when I think about abundance, and of course the summit, right, tap into abundance, I always think about that. I think about nature and how exactly how you described it. So hopefully someone else can listen to this and take that away, because it's so true. We all can be abundant, and there's abundance everywhere, and nature is
yeah.
a reflection of that.
Yeah. And
Yep.
nature's always producing more than enough.
More
Right? You
than
walk by
enough.
any apple
Yes.
tree, there are always dead apples on the ground. The
Yeah.
roses are like there's more and there's more and there's more and there's more. And nature doesn't bloom all at once, right? There's a bud and there's a rose and there's a bud that's all a flower that's all dried up and desiccated and it's dead and it's on the ground, right? So we
Yeah.
see all stages of nature at once. A projector thing that the trees have taught me. I was journaling about this morning as I was taking some notes to prepare for this conversation, and I became aware that the trees let life come to them. So the projector likes to let life come to us. The
Yeah.
generators are in the weeds, and they're the busy bees that are going from tree to tree to tree to tree, and they're pollinating everything. But the projector rises where it's planted. It stays where it is, it grows up tall, and it has this high level view. And then the birds come and the bees come, and then they take the nourishment and the shelter from the tree and they distribute it. The monkeys come to the tree, they take the fruit, and then they run off through the canopy, and they're pooping out the seeds. They're distributing the pollen on their journey, right? And so there's a way that my business has grown organically without me having to do the work, because the bees and the birds and the monkeys are basically pollinating and spreading the seeds of the tree, while
Mhm.
I just stay planted and rooted right where I am.
Yeah. Nourishing yourself and growing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you can shine and people can find you. Thank you for sharing. Now, I was gonna ask you this. Do you know your profile line numbers in human design? Like 3-5 or 5-1, or
Yes, I'm a 5-1.
you're 5-1, okay.
I'm the maverick.
I love it. Yeah, no,
Tell me what you know about my line. I'm a 5-1.
I'm a well, you're a researcher, right, with the
I'm the
1-1.
heretic investigator. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 5 line, you're offering practical solutions for people. You're here to influence strangers. You kind of give off that superhero energy. You're in the projection field, right? So people project onto you what they expect you to be, and like what you should be doing. And so I have a 5 line that's unconscious. I'm a 3-5. So I had to do a lot of deconditioning with that as well. And I think a lot of 5 lines are drawn to EFT tapping. I did a community call, and everyone but one person was a 5 line, because they're like, give me the practical solution. Let me,
Oh, interesting.
how do I get through this? Right. And so, yeah, the 5 line, a lot of pain that can come with it, and a 5 line projector too. Right. Um, a lot of pain that can come from it is, feeling like we're disappointing people. We're not living up to other people's expectations of us. And so how we heal with that is just finding ourselves, right? And staying true to ourselves and not bending to go rescue this person, or, whoever they expected me to be, and I'm going to be that person. It sounds like you've gone through that deconditioning journey. I have just, couple years now gone through it myself, and just realizing like, no, this is who I am, this is what I can offer the world. And like, you don't need to throw projections onto me, this is just what I can do for you right now, and then when I'm done, I'm out of here, and that's it. You know.
It's so challenging as a projector to have that because, when people see you as a certain way, they're projecting onto you and they're showing you a quality about themselves. And the not self wants to take it on. So the not self wants to go out of my core, out of my authority, over here to be who they want me to be, but I might not be who they want me to be. The reason they're attracted to me is because, and the reason they're attracted to you is because they want that high level of view where you're unwavering. The thing about the tree is it is steadfast, it is rooted, and my root is colored in. My root is
Mhm.
solid.
Yeah.
Right. And my ajna is solid and my throat is solid and my G center is solid. And I got a line all the way down. And I'm like, and people want that. They want that unwavering thing. And yet, and that steadfastness and that discipline and that devotion and that determination, they want that steadiness, which they see in me. And then they
Mhm.
project something onto me and they want me to abandon myself, right?
Yeah.
To be who they want me to be. And it takes constant awareness. It takes constant recognition of self, of that's you and that's not me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you
That.
so much for naming that. And thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that with all the fellow projectors out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
the
and
five one.
the thing
Yeah.
about being an energy projector also that I think is worth saying, especially in an entrepreneurial environment, is that we get burned out if we take on other people's energy.
Absolutely. And it's so easy, and you, so you would have the, um is your emotional solar plexus defined on
My
the right side?
my solar plexus is defined.
Yeah, so that's defined, and then your spleen is open? The other
Yes.
side? The spleen
Yeah.
is open? Yeah, so the pattern there is holding on to things for too long, even though
Yeah.
it's not good for you, right? So I'm a
Right.
3/5 emotional generator. I have the emotional center defined as well. So I'm a busy bee, but I've got that 5 line, like, can you do this for me? Can you be this person? My identity center, my G center is undefined. So it's all about like, who am I? Like, I don't know who I am, like I can be whoever I want. So, but for you, yeah, it's like, it seems like you speak from your heart, you speak from your mind, it's all connected, it's all rooted. But the 5 line, being conscious, knowing that people are projecting onto you, like I said, also being a projector, people are projecting onto you who they want you to be, and you're like, that's not me.
No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I didn't say I would do that, but in your head, it's already happening.
And that's totally why I'm transitioning to teaching intentional creativity because you're going to start with the blank canvas and you're going to project onto that canvas,
Yeah.
not me. And you're going to make your marks on that canvas. You're going to react to that canvas and you're going to see your inner narrative that says, "Oh, I'm a terrible painter. Oh, I'm not creative. Oh, that's ugly. Oh, I should wipe that off." Or, "Oh, that's beautiful." And you'll begin to identify with yourself as creator creating your reality. And you'll learn to not
Mm.
project it onto me or other people or the environment or the economy because you are generating your experience through how you interface with the non-physical. So I'm so excited to begin to share this in a bigger way because the canvas is just as good a thing to project on as me
That's such a good.
or your friends or your
Yeah.
partner, right?
Yeah, like, face yourself, face what it is and
Exactly.
put it on a canvas. Oh, I love that. I know we're, looking at time here. What do you have, we'll go back to money, what advice do you have for people who may be struggling to manifest more money in their life?
Why do you want the money?
Mm.
So I would do what I call a 7-step process. Very simple. Why do you want the money? Write it down. So you could actually draw a line down the middle of the page, write down, I'm struggling to manifest money, and then why I want the money. So um, I want the money because then I'm going to be able to support myself. And then go over to the why side. Why do you want to be able to support yourself? Because I've never been able to support myself, or I'm tired of being dependent on other people. And then go to the why. Well, why do you not want to be dependent on other people? Well, because I want to feel capable. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Oh, why do you want to feel capable? Well, because my parents told me I'd never make money being an artist, or because I'm a woman and in my family I was just told you should marry money, you're never going to make it, or some version of invalidation, and I want to feel worthy right now. And then you keep asking, why do I want the thing? Okay, here's the thing I want. Why do I want that particular thing? And eventually you're going to get to the real reason, which is I want to know I matter. I want to feel worthy. I want to feel seen. I want to be validated and recognized and acknowledged. And you can go directly to meeting your needs immediately, 24/7. You don't have to wait for money to show up, because projecting onto money that you need money in order for you to feel worthy is giving all the power to money, and you are unconsciously disempowering yourself. If you have money, you feel powerful. If you don't, you don't. And you're not actually in control of your emotional state. So that's a very high level projector view of ways that we disempower ourselves, right? It's easy to project onto money, I need you so that I feel good about me. It's easy to project onto another person, I need you to approve of me so that I feel good about me. And if we can create some space between the thing that we want and why we really want it, and go 7 levels deep to realize, oh, this is about me and my identity of someone who deserves to be loved, who is worthy. That's what I really want. And I'm going to go about learning how to meet my needs directly. Now, we've been talking about EFT. That is a very powerful way to begin to integrate when the mind and the body are separate. There are many modalities: timeline therapy, NLP, internal family systems, breath work, journaling, intentional creativity, lots and lots of ways to do it. But I would say, at the high level view, if you're struggling to manifest money, I would start with, why do you really want it? So you can see what the thing is that you really want, and go directly to learning how to have the thing you really want, which is, I want to feel worthy. I want to feel valuable. I want to feel loved, because you can meet that need. You can fulfill that need. You can meet that need so abundantly that you're overflowing with love and you're overflowing with value without waiting for money to show up. You can have it right now.
Yes. And I think that really speaks to, when you do this work, let's say money mindset work or whatever, it's always about the inner work. It always starts from within, and
Yeah.
then it shines outwards. And so we can't ever, a lot of times we can be drawn to, oh, I'll just do this and then my life will be better. But then you realize, oh shoot, I have to dig deep. I actually have to like work on my shadows, inner child work, things like that, to be able to express myself in the world the way that I've been meaning to. So yes, I love that. So we know that you're working on intentional creativity now. Do you still do EFT money
Yes.
coaching? You have
Yeah.
programs? Okay, yeah.
I'm adding to it. So
Adding
I've
to
been doing money mindset, and I've been using lots of tools. I've been using EFT, shadow work, journaling, metacognition, breath work, yoga, mantra. I've been using a whole, tool bag of mind body integrative modalities, and I'm adding intentional creativity to the toolkit. So it's not that it's a separate thing, it's a continuation, it's an amalgamation of the next thing. I think of it like, there are some Mayan temples where they would build a temple and then they would build the next one on top and the next one on top and the next one on top, which is also the way that the periodic table, by the way, is designed, which is that there's one element and then the next one is on top of the kernel of the previous one, and then the next one is on top of the kernel of the previous one. So, and it's actually how trees grow, with the rings and rings and rings and rings. So it's the next ring of my tree.
How can people work with you and connect with you? Where can they find you?
Well, I love to say you can find me in the quantum, because I'm there all the time, 24/7, never not. You can also find me at deborahfryer.com. And there is a free group if you're on Facebook. I don't know how long it will be there, but it's on Facebook for now. That's called the Anatomy of Money Academy. And you can go there and get a free book called Turn on Your Tap, which walks you through the neuroscience and practical application of EFT tapping.
Amazing. That's wonderful. I am so happy that we got to chat and you know, decided to be part of this podcast. I love hearing, your wisdom, especially knowing you're a projector. There's a lot, and they can catch you at the summit as well, so that they can learn more about money blocks, healing from money blocks. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Deborah.
Thanks so much for having me. What a rich conversation.
And that's it for today's episode. Please share it with anyone else who wants to learn more about human design, or anyone who may be on their personal growth and spiritual development journey. You can DM me on Instagram to talk about what resonated with you, what you learned about yourself. I love hearing about human design in real life, so I really appreciate those conversations. And if you would like, you can leave a comment, a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. That support means the world. Thank you so much for listening. I know time is a valuable currency. Take care.